Amen. Tashidelek respected Venerable Tenzin Leksokla and all participants. I welcome you all to the 5th session of the online teaching program on the Lam Rim, the graded path to enlightenment. I hope I am audible to all of you. So for the benefit of those who are joining us for the first time, I would like to appraise you that Nari Katsaling, in collaboration with Tibet House New Delhi, began these teachings on 12th of June 2021, and it shall continue till 14th August 2021. The sessions are conducted by Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdul, Director of Tibet House, and Venerable Tenzin Legtsok of Seraje Monastery, Karnataka. A little bit about ourselves, that is Nari Katsaling, which means joyous garden of the five senses, a name blessed by His Holiness himself on his first visit to Guwahati in 2014. We are a small Dharma center from Guwahati, Assam, in the Northeast India, imparting teachings and trainings in traditional Indian sciences along the lines of the hallowed Nalanda University and spreading the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. Although we began in 2014, we were formally registered as a society only in 2019. We have had a number of teaching sessions, workshops, trainings, conferences with teachers, speakers, professionals coming from different parts of India. However, ever since the pandemic, like everyone else, we too have gone online, which has given us this opportunity to connect to and to have participants in our sessions from across India and also abroad. And all this have been possible because of the generosity and kindness of Tibet House Delhi, and more particularly, Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdullah, the director of Tibet House Delhi, who has been constantly guiding, encouraging, and supporting us. With respect to the Lam Rim teachings, for which we are all gathered here today, again, for the benefit of those who are joining us for the first time, the first teaching was taught by Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdul on the introduction to Lam Rim. The second teaching was on precious human rebirth, which was taught by Venerable Tenzin Legtsok. The third and fourth sessions were on the Four Noble Truths taught by Venerable Geshe Dorje Damdul. Today's session is on karma, causes and effect, and I feel absolutely privileged to introduce Venerable Tenzin Legtsok, who will be teaching us this session. I would like to mention with gratitude that he has been my first teacher in my path to learn meditation and study Buddhism. Venerable Leksokla, born in Virginia, USA, has been ordained as a Buddhist monk in 2001 and is currently pursuing his Geshe studies from Seraje Monastery, Bailakup, Karnataka, and is in his 18th year. For the past 10 years, he has tried to make basic Buddhist teachings accessible to various audiences in India and the US through lectures, essays, and meditation instruction. We are indeed grateful to him for taking out his precious time for us today. Before we begin our session, I would like to give the mic to Tenzin Domala, our program coordinator from Tibet House, to make some necessary announcement. Domala, over to you.
Thank you, Chumkila. Tashle, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, those who are living across the countries. Tashle Gelektola, and good evening, everyone. And before we start the actual session, I request everyone to kindly keep your microphone and microphone on mute and videos on, so that we would have a very interactive session. Thank you. I, on behalf of Tibet House, welcome you all for joining for the 5th session on Law of Karma, Cause and Effect by Venerable Gen Legtsola. And I'm Tenzin Doma, as Chumkila mentioned. So some of you, most of you are already aware of Tibet House, our institution. Some new registrant, I would like to give a brief overview about Tibet House. Tibet House Culture Center, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, was founded in 1965 by His Holiness the Dalai Lama to preserve and disseminate the unique cultural heritage of Tibet and provide a center for Tibetan and studies. And Tibet House also has a museum of valuable Tibetan arts and artifacts, as well as library and a conference hall where weekly classes, philosophy classes, and lectures were held. And Tibet House also regularly organizes lectures, conferences like national, international conferences, exhibition, film screenings, and festivities throughout the year. These programs mainly focus on Indian, Tibetan, and Nalanda Buddhist history, science, religion, philosophy, art, literature, and culture, where it witnessed to the vital and evolving heritage of this Tibetan people. So, and before further ado, I would like to make two quick announcements that this year we are offering the Nalanda Diploma Course Batch 3, which is one of our major Tibet House courses. And the aim is kindly keep your microphone on mute. Somebody is unmute. Yeah, thank you. The main aim is to acquire the knowledge of various Buddhist subjects in order to deepen the understanding and Dharma practice. And this year we offer Nalanda Diploma Course Batch 3, and it was started in 2018. And for the first batch and second batch are successfully completed, and more than 1,200 participants from 44 countries across the world have benefited from these two batches. And this year, so we announced the Nalanda Diploma Course Batch 3. The registration is open and will remain open till 31st August. And the teaching will start from 1st August. So those who wants to join, register for this course, please feel free to register. And the detailed information are given in our website. And I'll also send you the link of a registration link in our chat box. And secondly, I'm so sorry. Secondly, the Canadian Tibetan Culture Center is organizing 3 sessions of talk, and the 2 sessions has already completed, and the 3rd session will be held tomorrow at Indian time 8:30 with the topic of teachings on introduction of Buddhist psychology and healing our mental stress by Venerable Geshe Dojo Damdil, Director of Tibet House, New Delhi. So those who wants to join, I'll also share you the Zoom link, and it will be in English language. So if you'd like to join, you can join through the link. Thank you very much, and I'll thank you, Jumkila, for the opportunity. So kindly proceed with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Domala. I, on behalf of Narigatsaling and Tibet House, now request Venerable Tenzin Legsogla to take over. Legsogla, over to you, please.
Okay. Thank you, Chumkila. Thank you, Domala. Taking over. I feel like I'm on a spaceship to, I don't know, Houston Control. Just passed it over to Captain Legtsok. So welcome everyone on board. So we'll be taking a little trip for the next hour and a half almost through the realm of karma in the wider universe of Buddhist philosophy. So to make a happy ride, let's start with a positive motivation. Right? So first of all, get settled where you are. You all look quite settled already, which is good. So yeah, but we need to look within our own minds to check the state of our own mind. Make sure, think about why we're here. Why are we logged on today? To participate in a kind of learning session about Buddhist teachings, especially about karma, the law of cause and effect. So think about your own condition, your own needs and aspirations, present as they pertain to this life, they pertain to future lives as well. What do you hope to achieve in the long term? What form of well-being and happiness? And then, yeah, in order to expand our motivation to encompass other sentient beings, right? Not only ourselves, but whatever we do, we want to do in order to bring benefit to ourselves, of course, but also other sentient beings, our kind parents, our family, our friends, and our wider community, right? In the country we live in, and the continent we live on, the planet we live on, the universe we inhabit. So bring to mind all sentient beings, animals and human beings, other kinds of beings, and reflect how they're just the same as oneself and wishing to have well-being and happiness, physical comfort, mental ease and joy, clarity, as well as to be free from suffering, right? So to whatever degree you can, authentically try to generate aspiration that whatever we do here together, it all becomes causes to free oneself and all sentient beings from every form of suffering. To bring oneself and all other sentient beings without excluding any at all, to temporary and ultimate well-being and happiness. And then if you like, then also try to generate bodhicitta, thinking that in order to achieve those ends, then I myself must quickly become enlightened, gain omniscience of a fully enlightened Buddha, and therefore I'll engage in this session. Okay, so yeah, so then starting with the bodhicitta motivation, then so today's topic is karma. Usually there are a lot of questions about karma. So yeah, because it's a very detailed, intricate teaching. And it also has a lot to do with our daily life and how to decide what kind of things, what kind of actions we should engage in and whatnot. What are the repercussions of actions we've done in the past? And why do different kinds of things happen to us? So, yeah. I mean, in general, and karma, the Buddhist teachings in karma is one of the most important teachings by the Buddha. I mean, it's not that just the Buddha gave one famous teaching on karma. It's something he taught again and again and again throughout his 40 years, teaching. And in different aspects of those various presentations on karma. Mostly, it's presented in the Abhidharma texts, the most detailed presentation. But it's good to we'll think about some of the fundamental questions that we have. Now, really have as human beings, to think, well, why is this teaching?
Legtsok, we cannot see you, and your voice has gone.
My voice is gone. Can you hear me now, Chunki?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Yeah, everyone's back. Okay, great. Yeah. So, I mean, well, you have to think, first of all, in the Buddhist worldview, like, I mean, of course, us all here in the WebEx room are human beings, but it's not that we're inherently human beings. So it's not that us being human beings is even, it's something we now, but it's not that necessarily we've always been human beings in the past, or that in the future that will always be human beings. I mean, when we talk about we, so then what is this I that is a human being now, but maybe wasn't in the past, was in the future? Basically, we're looking at more the I, this person, in relation to the continuum of consciousness. Right? So in the Buddhist worldview, then a person continues from life to life. You know, the person doesn't just begin at the time of conception in this life, and the person doesn't just end at the time of death, but rather a person is something more fundamental than just the characteristics attached with one particular life. A person is more associated with the continuum of consciousness that moves from life to life in an unbroken flow, just like a stream flowing through different counties, in a state. The stream doesn't just begin when it enters one county and end when it leaves another, the other border of that county. It flows continuously through the different villages, the different townships, and different taluks or counties. So like that, like our consciousness moves continually in an unbroken stream from life to life. So then the question comes, well, then why do we take rebirth, as an animal in one life? And then why do we take rebirth as a human in another life? Why do we take rebirth in a God realm in another life, and in a hell in another life? Like what is the cause for taking rebirth in different forms? And then even within the human, so it's probably more easy for us to relate to human rebirth because that's what we're all experiencing now. So then even within human rebirth, well, why do I take rebirth in the United States versus in India? Or in India, why do I take rebirth in South India versus North India? Or in one, in one kind of family versus another family, as a female versus a male, as someone who's passionate about sports versus someone who's passionate about science or something. Why do these things happen to us, right? Why do we take rebirth on the one hand? Why do we take rebirth in different forms? On the other hand, all the kind of the aspects of our character, of our natural kind of persona. Why is it like that? And then another question is, why do things happen to us? Why do I meet these kind of people? Why do I always have this kind of thought arise in my mind? Why do I have strongly this kind of propensity? Why do I get sick? Why do I have misfortune? Why am I always very lucky and successful? Or whatever, all the different kind of things that happen to us. Why do those things happen? So karma is a way to answer those questions, right? There's an explainer for those questions. But it helps first to look at, well, what are other possible ways of answering those questions? Right. So especially because I know Marigatsu Lingo is aspiring to have a kind of a modern scientific outlook on things and compare Buddhist teachings with different aspects of modern science and modern philosophy. So this is a good way to think about karma. In the beginning is these kind of questions, and then look. So other ways of answering the questions. Well, I mean, in a religious context, another major way is to answer all these questions with the assertion of a God, a creator God, who created the world in this way, created me, as an individual person, created us in this way, and intentionally places us in different kinds of rebirth at different times. If you believe in rebirth, or even if you just believe in one rebirth, places us intentionally in a certain kind of family and causes us to have different kinds of experiences, and maybe even causes us to have different kinds of thoughts. So if there's an all-powerful creator God, then that's a very kind of easy explanation for everything. Well, it's this person or this creator God is some kind of force. It's this kind of intentional creative force that causes that answers all those questions, causes all those things to be that way. But then, the problems that come with the idea of a creator God is especially when things really don't go well, and when things seem unfair, when there's innocent people, suffering a lot, experiencing a lot of harm, oppression, natural disasters, and so forth. Well, why is the Creator God doing this? Creating things in this way, and then a typical kind of answer, which is can be a very helpful way to think. It's kind of a mind training, is to think, well, he's that God. I mean, tempted to say he, but of course, we don't know, or whatever. But that this person is putting us in this situation so that we can learn something from it, right? When difficult things happen, that God is giving us challenges so that, in order that we can grow by facing those challenges, right? That's a helpful way to think. But then there's problems that come with asserting an all-powerful creator God. Well, I mean, the main problem is, wouldn't that kind of God have to arise independent upon causes and conditions, right? And so then actually that kind of God is not all powerful, because it also, that kind of, anything, just as anything impermanent, such a God has to be impermanent, and they're arising in dependence upon causes and conditions, which are beyond their control, right? So then they're actually not all powerful. So then where does their control begin and where does their control end? Anyway, there's all kinds of problems that come with that. So that's one kind of explanation for all the questions we started with. Why are we born in certain situation, and why did things happen to us? Another kind of explanation is a more modern scientific materialistic explanation, that there is no reason for anything. It's all just chance. It's all just, basically there is no reason. So if you have a materialistic outlook, it means you think everything that exists is matter, right? The fundamental building blocks of the universe are atoms and subatomic particles, quarks, and so forth. Those things all move according to physical properties, the properties, clarified in physics and chemistry. And there's no particular reason for them moving other than, one bumped, from the left, and so it moves to the right. There's some force from the south, and so the thing goes to the north. And so there's fixed physical laws that govern the movement of everything. And then, on the minute scale, and then as you scale up, you get more complex structures like molecules, and then more complex, structures like plants and living organisms, and finally get, humans, the human brain, the most complex physical structures we know of, which actually, we don't really know how it works. Like, for example, how are your memories stored in your brain? We can explain how memories are stored on a pen drive, a USB stick, but how are memories stored in the brain? In what form? So then, according to physical explanation, materialistic. So, most modern scientists, most modern scientific fields, they accept this kind of materialistic worldview that everything is made of matter. Our sense of having a consciousness that is not matter is just an illusion of our mind. And so everything happens according to physical properties. So then when you ask a question, well, why am I born as a human being versus another thing? Well, first of all, there is no past life. You didn't exist before your body. You only come into existence at the time of the body. When the body ceases to exist, you also cease to exist. But then why do I have certain thoughts arise? Well, secondly, you don't really have thoughts. They're just, you don't have consciousness. There's things that happen in the brain. Things happen in the brain due to different chemical processes. And there's no, more fundamental reason for it than just, there's the cells of the brain, the neurons, they fire in different ways, kind of automatically in relation to when different hormones are released in the body because of different physical stimuli from outside and so forth. So there's that kind of explanation. So, what are some of the drawbacks of that explanation? Well, it means there's nothing really, there's not much deeper meaning in life. There's no kind of real purpose to our lives. We're just a happenstance. We're on Earth. And whatever we do, it doesn't really matter much, because at the time, we die, then it's all over. It doesn't matter much for us personally. There could still be reasons, of course, to treat other people well and to, contribute something good to the world. Of course, because whatever we contribute, to the well-being of others, that will live on after us in some way, because the effects will carry on. So, of course, there can be you can actually find a rich basis for moral behavior, ethical behavior within a materialistic worldview. But I think one of the biggest problems with that view is that for most of us, it doesn't really do much to explain how we feel about who we are. We feel like we're someone who has a mind. Well, I mean, another big problem is there's no free will, right? Because everything just happens due to physical reactions. So we actually, when we have a sense that, oh, now I'm going to decide to stand up and walk to the living room. Actually, that's not a choice we made. That's an outcome of physical things that happened in our body and in our brain, so that we had that thought. It appears like we have made a free choice, but actually we didn't. What appears to us is, yeah. So, I mean, one big problem is that we don't have free choice. And then another problem is qualia, which means we have a sense that have basically we have feelings, like the feeling of joy, the feeling of sadness. And then that feeling, for example, or that thought, to do something, that is a real thing. It's not reducible to a physical entity. Like, where can you find the thought, like, I want to go take a walk? That thought it seems to be a real thing that exists, but it doesn't have shape, it doesn't have color, it doesn't have mass, it doesn't have physical properties, and yet it seems to be a thing that exists. So in a materialistic framework, you can't really explain like what that is, except that it's an illusion. It actually is something that appears to exist but doesn't. But that doesn't match our experience at all. In our experience, we very much feel like we really do have thoughts, we have feelings, we have free will, we are able to make decisions about what we do. So in that way, yeah, the ability of the materialistic worldview to explain kind of what the world seems like it actually is to us is very poor. It's very weak. Yeah. Anyway, but that's another option, other than karma, to explain why things happen to us. So the Buddhist, yeah. So then there's the Buddhist view. So there's a creator. There could be a creator God. There could be just material, and then the Buddhist view is explanation of karma. So in the Buddhist, so the fundamental kind of, and in the Buddhist worldview, like, karma is like a physical principle, in that it's just a principle, but it's not like if we believe in karma, then it works for us, and if we don't believe in karma, then it doesn't work for us. It's not like that, right? The Buddha's not teaching. He's teaching karma just in the way that a physics teacher would teach physics, laws of physics. A chemistry teacher would teach the laws of chemistry. Like, this is a way the world works. So if you understand it, so just like the laws of physics and chemistry, by understanding, doing empirical analysis, doing research, making experiments, then we come to understand. So this is, the development of scientific knowledge. We come to understand with more subtlety and more detail the properties and the laws according to which the physical world operates. And then with that wisdom, with that knowledge, we can use those laws to create things. And we create, plastics, we create silicon chips, we create computers, we create, electricity. I mean, it's not like we created electricity, but we learn how to make electricity and then harness it, channel it through lines and use it to run all kinds of machines and stuff. And so we become very much more skillful with the way we engage with the physical world, and we have a lot more comfort, right? We have cars we can drive, so we don't have to walk everywhere, or feed horses and cows and then ride them places. We can just jump in a car and turn the key and drive off, or jump in an airplane and fly to the other side of the world. So you can see how by understanding physical laws, it leads to a lot of reduction of suffering and increase of comfort and convenience and just, yeah, better quality of life. So karma is like that. That's why the Buddha taught karma, for the same reason. That karma is with the laws of karma, it's just a natural law in the world. It's not a physical law so much, but it's a law of well, it's the golden rule. Right? It's the golden law, basically, that the way you act, especially with regard to other sentient beings, but even the inanimate environment, the way you act, whether it's harmful or helpful to others, becomes a cause for what kind of results you experience, whether those results are pleasant, as an outcome of actions which are beneficial to others, or whether you experience results that are unpleasant and actually painful, suffering results, which is a outcome of actions that are harmful to others, right? So basically, the rule is that when you engage, I mean, it's the same golden rule that you find in the New Testament, in the Bhagavad Gita and other spiritual traditions, that when you reap what you sow, in short, right? So when you engage in actions that are harmful to others, to the environment, then you create causes for your own suffering, right? That's the result, is that you experience some form of suffering in the future. And when you engage in actions that are helpful to other sentient beings, or beneficial to yourself, beneficial to the environment, then the result is that you experience pleasure, right? You experience results that are beneficial, supportive, enjoyable to oneself. So, yeah, so the Buddha taught this like a physical law, and the idea is that the better we understand, the laws of karma, then we have more wisdom, then we modify our behavior, and then we can create more causes for well-being and happiness, and reduce causes for suffering. So that's kind of the big picture of what karma is. So yeah, in the Lam Rim, because this is a Lam Rim course, so now I'll start sharing some slides. I whipped up some PowerPoint slides to kind of, help keep you guys' attention on track this morning. So I'll share my screen now and show you some of my PowerPoints, and we'll start with slideshow. Slide. Great. So since this is a Lam Rim course, I just want to show you, first of all, where the presentation of karma fits in the Lam Rim. So these are the main topics of the Lam Rim. We can divide the Lam Rim basically into 4 sections. Originally, there's 2 preliminary topics, which we've already covered. So the first is correctly relying upon the spiritual teacher, which we skipped over, basically. And then the other one is the precious human rebirth, which I introduced last time I talked. And then there's what's called the 3 scopes. There's the 3 main sections of the Lam Rim, which are divided according to a person's motivation, what kind of goal they seek, right? So the first of the 4 topics of the path shared with beings of the small scope. So the small scope, the first of the 3 main sections of the Lam Rim is it's called the path shared with beings of the small scope. So small scope means it's referring to the scope of the person's aspiration or motivation. So here, the person that this section of the Lam Rim is taught for is primarily someone who wants to have a good future rebirth, right? Someone who recognizes that they're going to die, and they're concerned about what's going to happen to them after they die, right? So they want to make sure they don't fall into hell or take rebirth as an animal or something. So they're primarily concerned about acquiring good future rebirth. And then just to look at the middle scope and the great scope first. So the middle scope is primarily our topics of the Lam Rim, primarily taught for a person who recognizes that, well, even if I take a good rebirth, what's going to happen in that rebirth is I'm going to be born, and then I'm going to grow old. If I'm lucky, then I'm going to grow older from the time of birth. Eventually, I'm going to get sick, and I'm going to die. Right? Eventually, the main thing is I'm going to die from that rebirth, and then just take rebirth again. And then even if I take another great rebirth, again I'll die, and then the best I can hope for is again take a good rebirth, and that just goes on and on and on without end. Right? So then, well, how can I, do better than that? So the person of the middle scope aspires to be free from this process of birth and death, which is called samsara, right? Which is the cycle of birth and death is samsara. So they aspire to be free from that and achieve nirvana. There, I can stop sharing for a minute while I'm explaining the three scopes. Yeah, so the middle scope are topics taught for a person who they aspire to be free from samsara, whereas the small scope is topics taught for someone who just aspires to achieve a good future rebirth. But then, then the person of the middle scope, they might think, okay, well, even if I am free from samsara, then, well, what about my mother, and my father, my brothers and sisters, and all my friends? If I'm free from I can't say that for some reason this morning. If I'm free from samsara, but they're still stuck in samsara, it'd be, it'd be kind of like, we all, with our whole family, we go for, a Sunday trip to the House of Horrors or something, like a haunted house. And then, it's actually completely terrifying, and we're actually having a miserable time. And then somehow we get out, but then we just happily walk home and be like, oh, forget about them, I want to go have lunch. We wouldn't do that, right? If we're in some horrific situation and we get out of it, of course, if we can do something to help, those who've been kind to us, those who we love, those who we care about, to get out of that same situation, of course we would do that, right? So a person of the great scope, so then we come to the person of the great scope, they see that, actually, if I alone am free from some, I'm going to stop saying that. If I alone have escaped from samsara, then that's not good enough. If I can do something to help others escape, then I have to do that, right? I'm obliged to do that. It's my responsibility, and it's just the right thing to do. So a person of the great scope sees that, thinks, well, what's the best I can do to help all of the sentient beings escape the oceans of samsaric suffering? Then is to become fully enlightened, right? So they aspire to become fully enlightened. So those are the three scopes, right? So the topics of the great scope are taught. Oops, what am I? I'm trying to share my screen, but I'm clicking on start and stop video. Okay, there we go. There we go. So those are the three scopes. There's a small scope, a middle scope, and a great scope. So small scope is teachings for a person who aspires to achieve happiness in future lives. Middle scope, the sections of Lam Rim taught for a person who aspires to be free from samsara. And the great scope are teachings for the person who aspires to become enlightened in order to free all sentient beings from samsara. So now we're on the small scope, and karma. There's karma down here. It's the last topic of there's four main topics. Did I get them all? Yeah, in the small scope of Lam Rim. Oops, let me go back. So the first is impermanence and death, which I don't think we're covering separately. I touched a little bit on last time, but yeah. Okay, so first is impermanence and death. Second is suffering of the lower realms, which probably Geshe Dorje Damdrol taught about in the course of the truth of suffering. So the suffering of the lower realms, especially the sufferings of hell, hungry ghosts, and animals. And then we think about what can protect us from falling into the sufferings of the lower realms, the three jewels of refuge, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the third topic. But then how do they actually teach us? How do they actually protect us from falling into the suffering of the lower realms? By teaching the law of karma, the law of cause and effect, which is an explanation of why why we, how we create the causes, why we basically take rebirth in suffering circumstances, whether it's, in the lower realms, hell, as a hell being, hungry ghost, as an animal, or even as a human being, if we're born, in different circumstances, maybe to an abusive family, or in a war-torn area, or an area afflicted by famine and natural disasters, and so forth, or with severe physical and mental disabilities. Yeah, what are the causes that we create to be reborn into a suffering circumstances, and then even within a good rebirth, what are the causes we create to have good fortune or misfortune in that? So this is a very important point. That it's a very important point, especially in regard to refuge. That because when we go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, Buddhism, one of the main attitudes we need to have is faith that the Buddha and Dharma and Sangha have the ability to protect us from suffering, from the suffering of samsara, especially the suffering of the lower realms. So in order to have that kind of faith, we need to understand how do they actually protect us from suffering, right? And the main way to understand, the main way that the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, especially we'll say the Buddha, the teacher, right? The main way the Buddha protects us from suffering is not like a big brother standing over us with a stick and keeping away all of our enemies or something like that, or a kind parent, protecting us from sticking our finger in the light socket or something like that. But the main way that Buddha protects us is by teaching us karma, the law of cause and effect, right? By teaching us how we create, through our own actions of our body, our speech, and our mind, how we create either the causes for our suffering or the causes of happiness. That's the main way the Buddha teaches, is by explaining the law of cause and effect, right? So that's why you can see karma is so important, right? It's the main way the Buddha protects us from suffering. It's kind of like, like a good nutritionist teaching us, well, if every day you go to McDonald's and you eat hamburgers and fries and a supersized Coke or something, your liver is quickly going to break down. You're going to get diabetes and you're going to just die young, right? You won't live a long life or a very comfortable life. Whereas if you eat a well-balanced diet of fresh fruits and vegetables and whole foods and grains and legumes and things, then you'll be healthy and comfortable and you'll live a long time, probably. So it's kind of like that. The Buddha's teaching us about karma. And so the nutritionists, they can't hold our hand and be with us every meal and spoon feed us everything, but rather they give us the basic principles and about how to be healthy. And then it's up to us whether we follow those principles or not. So that's how a nutritionist protects us from ill health, right? So in the same way, that's how the Buddha protects us from suffering of samsara. He teaches us, well, how does this thing work, right? What are the laws that govern the creation of happiness, happy and pleasant and unpleasant experiences? And then it's up to us to follow the laws. So now, next slide. Okay, so all right, you guys can see the whole screen, can't you? You don't have the little box in the corner with all the faces. Okay, good. So this is, yeah, I want to talk about three things today. As usual, I'm using up a lot more time on introductory comments than I planned to. But yeah, we'll just whip through some of the three main aspects of karma. Okay, so let's see. In the Lam Rim outlines, the karma is under the heading of developing the faith of conviction regarding karma and its effects. The root of all happiness and goodness has three parts, right? So we need to, by reflecting on karma, we want to aim towards generating conviction and the truth of it. But to do that, we have to analyze. So it has three parts. So explanation, three parts. Where's my cursor? Oh, I want to use this. Let me try to use this. Annotate again. Okay, great. Contemplating karma and its effects in general. Okay, so there's the first one. Change my color. Okay, contemplating karma and its effects in general, then contemplating karma and its effects in particular. I mean, it's more like divisions, more detail. And then having contemplated them, how to turn away from non-virtue and practice virtue. So that's more something we meditate on. Well, yeah, that one I won't explain so much, but we'll try to do a little meditation towards the end. Okay, so first of all, contemplating. Go to the next slide. By the way, I have to turn annotate off. Something to go. Oops. There we go. Okay, so contemplating karma and its effects in general. So mainly, the main presentation of karma is the 4 characteristics of karma. So there's 4 main characteristics of karma. Well, I should say first of all, so what exactly is karma? You know, that's a little bit difficult question. You get different answers in different Buddhist tenet schools, but mainly, I mean, according to the main kind of view that we hold is that karma is essentially, karma is the mental factor of intention, right? So essentially karma is a kind of consciousness. Within kinds of consciousness, there's 2 types. There's main minds and mental factors. And then, so karma is a mental factor within those 2, main minds and mental factors. It's a mental factor. And especially it's a mental factor of intention. So how do we understand this? Just think, I'm sharing for a second. So, well, you know, any voluntary action that we do, we have to have an intention that preceded that action. You know, so if, let's see, here's my favorite prop, my mug. So if I want to take a sip of water, you know, even a simple action like taking a sip of water, you know, our arm just doesn't automatically reach out and grab the cup and come to our mouth. It might feel like that sometimes if we're busy doing something else, but actually on some level there is an intention. That's a voluntary action. So just compare it. It's like our heart beating is an involuntary action, right? Or breathing generally is an involuntary action, our eyes blinking. So we don't have to have an intention, okay, heart, now beat again, and now beat again, and just don't stop, just keep going. We don't have to think like that, right? It just goes automatically. But, you know, to do something like take a sip of water from a mug, you know, which I'll do now, because I've been talking for almost an hour. Then we have to have an intention. So we have a thought, now I will take a sip of water, right? And then we actually do that action. So, I mean, that's a physical action, taking a sip of water. So we have physical actions. And then speaking, like, is a verbal action. So whenever we speak, we always have a thought that precedes. Now I'm going to say this, now I'm going to say that, so forth. So those are all intentions. And then then look at our thoughts. Our thoughts are very interesting because, well, for many reasons in general, but so I'll ask you guys a question. Within your thoughts, so just think about the kind of different thoughts that you have. Within your thoughts, do all of your thoughts arise intentionally or not? So within your thoughts that arise in your mind, do some of them arise intentionally? I try to think in your own experience of an example of a thought that has arisen intentionally. Well, just doing that, if you're doing that, then that's an intentional thought, right? Because you've just decided, okay, now I'm going to think about what thought arises intentionally in my mind. So if you think that, that's intentional. You just decided to do that, right? But often we have thoughts that just arise like spontaneously without intention, right? So those are not karma. So this is important because sometimes, especially when we have a lot of negative thoughts arising in our mind, and we've just started believing, you know, we've just started studying Buddhism and believing that every action we engage in creates karma. It can be really scary to see that there's all this negative garbage arising in my mind, And then if we think, and by all of that, I'm creating karma every time I have those thoughts. And one effect of karma is that I do the same thing again in the future. Then it can feel like we're totally stuck, right? That we're just never going to get out of the kind of mental mess that we're in. So that's where it's helpful to remember the definition of karma is it's a mental factor of intention. So intention is intentional thoughts. So within our thoughts, when we intentionally think something like, I like to garden. I'm going to go out and garden and plant some flowers and pull the weeds. Right? So even if, or like, say, maybe, oh, my father is sick, so I'm going to, make some nice tea and offer it to him. Even if we don't actually do that, even if we just have the thought, say, to offer some nice, nice cup of tea to my father, for instance, just having that thought, that's an intentional act, right? Having that thought, decide, thinking I'm going to do that intentionally. So it might happen, and that is a karma. We create karma in that. Whereas if we just have an unintentional thought arise, say we just see someone walking down the street, and this maybe aversion arises, think, oh, I don't like the look of that person. As long as we don't actually follow that thought, so that's a thought can spontaneously arise. That's the result of karma, right? When a thought spontaneously arises, that's a result of karma we've created in the past. So, and before the moment where we actually do anything conscientiously in reaction to that thought arising, we're not creating karma. As soon as we react to that thought, like it doesn't, I mean, it can even be, it doesn't have to be conscious in the sense of like there's subconscious and conscious. It can even be on like a subconscious level. But as soon as we react kind of volitionally, is a better word. So say we see someone walking down the street and we think, oh, that person looks, I don't know, for whatever reason we don't like. We think the person looks, I don't know, something bad. And then we think so that's just a result of karma. But then if we think, yeah, that's a bad person, I don't like them, I don't ever want to meet that person, then it becomes, then we've intentionally thought something, right? So it's a kind of it's not a, well, it's kind of a subtle thing. It's something we don't usually think about, but it's very important to pay attention and try to learn to discern. I mean, even as I'm describing to you, I see like, yeah, there's gray areas even I'm not really clear about, like when exactly, for me, it's not a totally clear line, but we have to try to see more clearly, like the difference between unintentionally, when thoughts arise unintentionally, versus when we, which are not, where we're not creating karma, it's the result of karma, versus where we intentionally think things, we intentionally decide to do things. So they're very clear examples of each, but there's a kind of middle gray area that's a little more difficult to see. But so anyway, the main thing here though is that karma is the mental factor. Okay, karma is the mental factor of intention. So it means like when we have intentional thoughts, and then we intentionally engage in, so those are mental actions. We intentionally engage in verbal actions. It's the thought, the intent, the intention to do the action that preceded the action, and that occurs at the same time as the verbal action, right? That's all karma. We're creating karma at that time. I mean, it is karma, and we're creating imprints of karmic seeds. And then same with physical action. So the intentions that precede physical actions. So like before I pick up my cup to take a drink of water, I think, oh, I'm going to take a drink of water. And then as I drink the water, I think, okay, I'm going to drink this, I'm drinking this. All of that intentionality is actual karma. And by doing those things, we're creating, oh, sorry, click the wrong button again. We're creating seeds of karma. So, yeah. So here, first of all, just karma is the mental factor of intention. And we'll come back to other divisions of karma in just a minute. So just have these four properties of karma, the four main characteristics of karma. So karma is certain. I'll just name them all first. Pull up my little marker. Oh, it's not coming down. Here we go. Okay. So first of all, karma is certain. It means, so this means, the color didn't stay. It means that it's certain in that, and then this. Whenever we create a virtuous karma, it's definite that the effect of that, it's certain that the effect of that will be something pleasant, right? Will be something, some kind of a good result, right? A pleasant result, a beneficial result. So whenever we create virtuous karma, that karma will only produce beneficial results. Whenever we create a negative karma, like we engage in an action that's harmful to ourselves or harmful to someone else intentionally, then the result will only be something that's unpleasant, right? That's somehow negative or destructive for ourselves or others. So, for example, the examples we typically talk about are like killing and generosity. So, for example, if we intentionally kill another creature, say a cockroach or something, we intentionally kill, it's a negative karma because we're destroying the life of another sentient being, or harming that being, their life. So then the result is certain to be something negative, right? The result will be us being killed, or our life being shortened, or us getting illness or something like that, right? So in that way, karma is certain. Non-virtuous karma gives rise to suffering. And then if we engage in a virtuous action like generosity, so we offer a nice cup of tea to someone with a pure intention, just because we want them to be able to enjoy a cup of tea, then the result is certain to be something pleasant. We will be able to enjoy many, many cups of tea and meals and so forth in the future through other people's kindness. So karma is certain in that way. That's the first. Karma is certain. And then the second, karma expands exponentially. So this is, I find, the most difficult characteristic of karma to kind of find a logical basis for. But basically, it's like this. It means, so again, let's stick with our example of killing. We kill a cockroach, then we create, with one action, kill a cockroach. So that we created this one karmic action, but the result expands. So it means until we experience the result of that karma, the power of that karmic seed to produce a result increases exponentially. So if we kill one cockroach today and we don't purify that karma, then by tomorrow, 24 hours later or so, then it's as if we killed two cockroaches. We created the karma of killing two cockroaches. By the next day, it's as if we killed four. Means the power of that karmic seed to produce a result, it doubles day by day. So and it's the same for virtuous karma and non-virtuous karma. So it means that through time, the power of the karmic seeds we've created, they increase, meaning their ability to produce a result becomes greater and greater. So likewise, if we offer a nice cup of tea for our father today, and we don't do anything to destroy that karma and it doesn't ripen, then by tomorrow it's as if we offered 2 cups of tea, and by the next day it's as if we offered 4 cups of tea, and the next day 8, and so forth. So the power of that karma to produce a result increases, which means that the effects that we experience as a result of even small karma actions are much greater, right? And expand through time. So that's the second property of karma. And like I said, that one's quite difficult to kind of see why that would be. And then the fourth characteristic is that one will not experience the results of karma that one has not created. So this is quite easy to understand. If we don't engage in certain karmic actions, like if I don't kill any living being, then I won't, experience the karma, the results of karma of killing, because I haven't done that action. So sometimes I know people, I've had friends ask in the past about, well, will I experience the karma that my parents have created? So here's the answer: no, because the karma that our parents have created is not the karma that we've created, right? So we won't experience the results of karma that our parents have created, independently of us, or anybody else for that matter. So we only experience the results of karma that we ourselves have created. So in that way, really in the Buddhist worldview, it's like we are the creator, instead of, as opposed to there being a creator God who determines like what happens to us. Actually, it's us. It's our own actions that determine what happens to us, and only our actions. But the reason it's so difficult to see is because the process of creating a karmic action, engaging in a karmic action, I should say, then planting the seeds of karma in our mind stream, and then those seeds ripening as an experience or a result for us, it plays out over lifetimes. It's not like, I create a karma today, and then by this evening, this morning, I create some karmas, and then by this evening, I see the results. And then tomorrow morning, I create different kind of karma, and then by that afternoon, tomorrow afternoon or evening, I can see the other results. If it was like that, it'd be much more easy to see and come to believe, and have faith in the law of karma, cause and effect. And it would be, everyone would know about it, and nobody would harm anybody else, because they're like, oh no, if I harm someone, then within 24 hours, I'm going to, if I, insult someone, within 24 hours, someone's going to insult me in just the same way. Or if I steal something, then someone else is going to steal, something from me. It'd be very easy to see, and then we'd all do it. But the reason it's difficult to see is because it plays out over long periods of time. So we don't see the correlation between the causes and the effects. But anyway, so the third characteristic is we do not experience the results of karma that we have not created. And, so indirectly that's saying we only experience the results of karma that we have created, right? So whatever experience we have, we've created a karma to have that experience. And then the third characteristic here is that once created, karma does not deteriorate. So this means when we engage in a karma, in an intentional action, we create a karmic seed. That seed does not deteriorate just on its own, right, by itself. So basically it means that karmic seed, which is a potential for us to experience something as a result of that action, that remains preserved indefinitely, for a long, long, long time. It's like the seeds stored in like a seed bank deep under the ground in Sweden or something like that. Like they don't deteriorate at all, and their potential to produce a result remains undeteriorated, right? And actually, and remember the second property, and it increases. Their potency, their power to produce a result increases continuously. So it's not like we can just, engage in, different karmic actions, killing or acts of generosity and so forth, and then think, well, it's like the money we put in the bank, like over time, it'll just lose its value and won't be able to do anything. So it's not like the just over time, the power of the past karmic actions we've created deteriorates and just kind of dissipates and goes away eventually. Or like the clouds in the sky, or the dew on the grass in the morning, or something like that. Rather, it remains until either, in the case of negative karmas, we purify it. In the case of, well, until basically either the karma is destroyed somehow by an opposing force. So with negative karmas, we can engage in acts of purification to destroy the negative karma, or virtuous karmic seeds when we generate strong afflictive emotions, especially anger. It destroys the seeds of karma. That's one way. There are karmic seeds can be destroyed by an opposing force, or weakened by an opposing force, or they ripen, right? They become exhausted by ripening. the other way. Okay, so those are the 4 main characteristics of karma. Yeah, actually, I want to give you guys opportunity to ask questions now, basically. So I'll just skip through the next 2 slides and just kind of briefly mention what's there, and then we can discuss. So some divisions of karma. There's 3 different divisions of karma here. I've already talked about virtuous and non-virtuous karma. It's also called virtuous, called white, and non-virtuous called black karma in the traditional Lam Rim text. Then there's physical, verbal, mental karma, which I've already spoken about as well. By our physical, verbal, mental actions, intentional actions. And then 2 I haven't mentioned is throwing karma and completing karma. So these are throwing karma, are karmas that are, they have the power to throw us into a rebirth, right? So at the time we die, then powerful karmas we've created in this life or past lives, they ripen and then throw us into the next life, the next rebirth. So it's called a throwing karma. And those are more complete karmas in the sense that all the factors that are required to create a complete karma are there. They're all complete. And then to make it really confusing, then the second kind is called completing karmas, which means basically here completing in the sense that like these are the karmas that fill in all the different details of our experiences in a life. So say in this life, we've all, all of us who are here now, we've in this little session, we're all human beings. So that means that we created some really good karma in our past life or some past life. When we were dying away from our immediate previous life, then this virtuous karma to take rebirth as a human being ripened. So that's a throwing karma. It threw us into this human rebirth. But then why are we born like male or female or with, bald or with really nice hair or, with a beard or, a small nose or wide shoulders or into a certain family with certain kind of health, certain kind of mental disposition. Those are all results of completing karma, right? So completing karma, it doesn't have the power to throw us into a rebirth, but those karmas ripen in such a way that they fill in all the different characteristics that we have in a certain life. And they are, responsible for all the different kind of experiences that we have. Okay, and then the next and last slide. So the 3 kinds of karmic effect. So the maturation effect is the kind of rebirth that we take. Whether we're born as a human being, animal, halbling, and so forth. That's the main kind of effect. And then there's another kind of effect is effects in concordance with the effects that are concordant with the causes. So this is the one I think we're most interested in. So there's a concordant experience and a concordant habituation or actions. So like I said before, think about the karma of killing. If we kill, say an insect, then we experience so there's a concordant experience as us being killed, right? So in the future, that karma will ripen as us being killed by another creature, or somehow our life force being harmed, right? And then there's a concordant habituation and action. So in this life, if we're like a pest terminator and we go around killing insects all the time, then not only will we be killed many, many times in the future, but in the future life, we'll have the habit just to kill insects. Like when we see them, we'll just automatically have the habit to do that. And so we'll have a tendency to repeat the same action. So the same is also for virtuous actions. So in this life, we're always really generous. Everyone that comes to our house, we offer them a nice cup of tea, a snack, a nice place to sit. And we speak to them in a friendly way, and we do that again and again and again. Then in the future life, future rebirth, we'll just automatically be that person, very hospitable, very generous person due to habituation. And then the third kind of effect is environmental effects. So this means the kind of environment that we're born into. So again, if through the karma of killing, because killing is fundamentally harming another being's life force, then we're born to that. We're born in an environment where there are a lot of things that harm our life, like disease, famine, natural disasters, polluted water and air and so forth. Whereas if we, like we nourish the life of others by offering them nice cups of tea and nice meals and, smile and friendly words, then we're born into an environment where there are a lot of conditions to nourish the life of beings. So there's plenty of clean water, clean air, vegetation, fruits, the crops ripen well, and so forth. So that's the kind of environmental effect. It has more to do with the inanimate environment that we're born into. Okay, so now I'm going to open it up for questions. But before that, I'll just review what we've done. Maybe helpful. So yeah, looking at karma, so mainly is these 4 characteristics of karma. Karma is certain, karma expands exponentially. One does not experience results of karma that one is not created, and once created, karma does not deteriorate. And then these 3 different divisions, the virtuous and non-virtuous, physical, verbal, and mental karmas, and then throwing and completing karma. And then 3 kinds of effects. The maturation effects, so primarily the kind of rebirth that we take, actually the kind of aggregates that we're born into, can say. And then the effects that are concordant with the causes, so the experiential and the habit, and then the environmental effects. Okay, that's it. So, what questions do you have? Okay, how do we do the questions? Do I just...
So I was just thinking. So anyone who wants to ask a question can either raise their hands or unmute yourself, and we can start.
I think
anyone questions, please?
Mr. Asus raised his hand first.
Raise your hand. Ashit.
Good evening, Venerable. I just wanted to ask, if qualities from previous birth are carried on to the next, so why are people on the path of dharma suppressed, even though they might be accumulating good karma from quite a few births, while people like politicians who might have been accumulating bad or negative traits are more influential and are acting as catalysts to suffering, darkness, and more confusion in the world?
Let me make sure I have your question right. So if karma acts such that, what's the first part of your question?
Why are the people who are on the path of dharma suppressed, even though they might have been accumulating good karma from quite a few births, because it is their innate nature to do good, and now they're in a position where they are also teaching dharma, but still they are not as influential as people who are corrupt? So,
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm not sure who's more influential. There's different kinds of influence. And then the people that are corrupt are the most influential. I'm not sure. I mean, if that's really the case. But who's influential in a society and who has power and control in a society largely is like it's a result of collective karma. On the one hand, and then also, I mean, because you have to remember, everything that happens isn't due to karma necessarily. I mean, that's a big question. And when we look at karma, well, like what things that happen in the world are results of karma? Is everything the result of karma directly, or primarily, or what things are not? Like the physical movement and the environment. That's probably not so much to do with the laws of karma. It's just physical principles do work, right? But then also, and then also because there is room for free will, right? If everything just happened necessarily as a result of karma, then it would, in a way, it could be like we have no choice, no opportunity to make choice, because everything we do is just a result of karma. Whereas karma itself is intention, right? It is our intentionality. So but in a society, why do people have certain people have a lot of power and influence? It really depends upon who we, as a society, who we give our attention to, right? And because we're under the control of like attachment, then we tend to give our attention to people that we feel are very attractive somehow, or very impressive, or people who, they know how to kind of pull our strings in the right way. and thereby get influence. I think, a lot of time Dharma practitioners, generally, they tend to be very humble, self-effacing, and they're not striving to accumulate power, influence, and be in the spotlight all the time. And so they're not, right? Whereas, as generally, we're quite suckers, people who really put themselves forward as something, incredible, something worthy of our attention. We tend to trust and believe that, and then give our attention to them, and then realize only much later that actually that was a total waste of time. That person has nothing, valuable really to teach me. That's most of our experience with pop music, probably. Like when we're teenagers, we think, oh yeah, pop stars are the greatest. They're so cool. I love Justin Bieber. Da, da, da. And then only 10 years later, we realize, my God, why was I paying so much attention to, look at our society. Why would we give so much attention to people who are movie stars and musicians? Like, it's great that they can, they are masters in a certain field, right, of acting or singing and so forth. And that's wonderful. But is that really going to, are they the best sources of, life advice for us? It's kind of a different question. Anyway, it's that kind of thing. Okay, so I think there's one just next to Ashit on my screen. It says Asus.
Zara. We have Zara.
Hi, good evening, Venerable Tenzin La. Thanks for the teaching today. I have a question around karma increasing exponentially, because it sounds then like it's going to be very, very difficult. If your negative karmas are exponentially increasing every day, the seed is growing exponentially every day, then even if you start doing positive, as much positive in the positive things in the world as you can, sounds like it's going to take a really, really long time to outpace that.
Yeah, but those
Long,
positive
right?
seeds, as soon as you create a positive seed, it starts like increasing exponentially every day. They're all the same, right? Yeah, it does sound, I know, it sounds kind of overwhelming, like especially when you think, before I even knew about karma, I've been creating karma all along, right? In my past lives. And all those karmas I've created in the past are currently, increasing exponentially their power. But they're all the same, right? So as soon as now when we, come to know about, understand, and have some faith in the karma, law of cause and effect, then every moment, we make decisions about how we act with our body, speech, and mind. And as soon as we engage in virtuous actions, they also start to increase. Their power starts to increase exponentially, even long after we've done them. So, I mean, on the one hand, yeah, it's an even playing field. Like all the karmas, they follow the same rules. So as soon as we know the principles, then if we act in accordance with them, it'll definitely, it'll definitely lead to benefit in the future, right? There's no question that when we create positive karmas, eventually that karma will ripen, right? And then it's also important that we can purify, right? So that's one thing I haven't gotten time to talk about.
She gets hyper, she starts acting out, like she was yelling at Arjun the other day. Yeah.
Okay, wait.
Because I was telling Chitra that Arjun was saying.
What's going on? So then we can purify negative karmas we've created in the past. There's the practice of applying the 4 opponent powers. There's practices of purification that we can purify negative karmas we've created in the past. So that's what we want to do. We want to, and basically, in the present, try to be more conscientious about how we use our mind, especially what kind of intentions that we have. That's why we put so much emphasis on generating a positive motivation at the beginning of each day, and having a whole world view where everything we do is part of working towards some betterment, the ultimate enlightenment of ourself and all sentient beings, right? So we want to have a positive motivation for every action we engage in throughout the day, and try to generate positive attitudes like loving kindness, compassion, generosity, patience, and tolerance in our mind. And then every action we do becomes virtuous, right, to some degree. And then we try to refrain from harming others. And then we also practice purifying the negative karma created in the past. Okay. Chumki, I want to just.
Yes. Yes, Legtsok. Asus is there. Asus is there.
Oh, let's touch the leg, Geshe-la. Geshe-la, I understand that my what you said, my present actions, thoughts and reaction, which is either good or bad, will generate positive or negative karma. However, if the condition of my present life, where I was born, who my parents are, the people that I will meet, the people that I have met, is already predetermined by my past life karma, that means my whole life is predetermined by my past life karma. So that means I really don't have any control or free will of my present life.
Well, do you? You don't have any free will? I think now. Okay, your past karma has determined.
The fact that I'm meeting you right now, is it karma or is it choice?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it's a mix of both. No, like, did you choose to join this WebEx meeting today, or did it just happen automatically? You had to make time. You had to, make time to come sit here, turn on your computer, go to open up the email with the link, click the link. So you had to make conscious choices. You might have had, but why did you even, well, why, but karma is involved. So it's more like, why did you even have the interest to join at all, right? Partly that's due to your karma, because you've taken interest in similar things in the past. And so in this life, you also have interest in those kind of things, right? But then what you do in reaction to that, if you think, yeah, I am interested, I'm going to follow that, I'm going to follow that proclivity, that interest, and do that, that is good to do. That's a choice to make, right? It's true that just the fact of being born a human being is a result of your karma and all the things you mentioned, in a certain family, a certain place, and so forth. But it doesn't, just because we're born into a certain family and into a certain set of parents and they advise us to act in a certain way. Come on, we don't always follow our parents' advice, like, for sure. We make decisions. Sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. Right? And sometimes it's for the better, and sometimes it's not. Right? So we do have a lot of free will, but it is a very important question, the one you're asking. Even within the thoughts that we have, it tends to, how much of that is shaped by our past habituation, which is karma, and how much of it just comes from the side of our own choice, right, and reason. So that's where reason is really important. It's really important to use reason and logic and think about, because otherwise we really do just follow the kind of pull of, when something feels good and we just do it because it feels good, that really is kind of blindly following our karma. But when something feels good and we think, well, what are going to be the long-term repercussions of doing that? Is it going to, lead to my long-term welfare or not? That kind of long-term thinking, that always involves logic and reason, and is kind of engaging our wisdom mind, right? So we want to think more what's going to lead to the long-term good of ourselves and others. And then we're really using our wisdom and not just following, the kind of dictates of our past karma. Okay. Chunky, you choose the next.
Yes, next we have Dipti. Legtsok. We have Dipti. Dipti, okay. Please, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hello, Legtsok. Legtsok, it is believed that Buddhas are free of all negative karma. When we have such a strong belief that when a person attains Buddhahood, they're free of negative karma, then how do we reconcile the fact that even Lord Shakyamuni Buddha had to face jealousy of Devadatta, and that he had to face this angry elephant that came charging towards him? How do we understand that?
Yeah, that's a great question and a difficult one. Yeah, I mean, also the Buddha, like Devadatta, as you mentioned, he tried to kill the Buddha on, I think, 4 different times. And especially one time, he had someone throw a boulder down from the top of a mountain. And the boulder came crashing down very close to the Buddha, and some rock shards splintered off and actually stuck into the Buddha's foot and caused him to bleed quite profusely. So yeah, there's a lot of debate in among Buddhist philosophers about what is going on there. If the Buddha has purified all negative karma, how could he suffer such a thing? Also, you know, the Buddha experienced illness at different times. At the end of his life, you know, his last meal probably caused him, looks like, to have some kind of severe illness and pass away. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. According to the Vaibhashika school, the Buddha actually has an ordinary physical body and does experience the results of negative karma. Created as an ordinary body and experiences pain, basically. But not according. So according to the higher schools, the Madhyamaka schools, that those things happening are more like they're not the result of the Buddha doesn't experience any negative karma. It's completely purified all negative karma. So those things are basically like a karmic experience. It's like, you know, it's the same question. If His Holiness the Dalai Lama actually is an emanation of the Buddha of compassion, and therefore actually is a Buddha, why does he, you know, have to be rushed to the hospital sometimes or experience kind of old age and, you know, have the appearance of forgetting things and so forth? Well, that's because I mean, for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, we'd say he's appearing as an ordinary person. So he has to appear that way because of our karma, right? The Buddhas appear in accordance with the disposition of their disciples. So with His Holiness, it's definitely that he's just, you know, showing an appearance that fits our karma. If he were to appear with like light rays radiating out, sort of floating in the sky, we wouldn't be able to see that, right? So then it wouldn't be able to benefit us. So the Buddhas appear in ways that benefit. But with Shakyamuni Buddha, it's a little more difficult because he's a supreme emanation body. It's a different kind of emanation body. The Buddha did have these did appear with all these miraculous, you know, radiating light rays and going up to heaven and coming down on a staircase of light and showing all these miracles, you know, on the days of miracles and so forth. And other things, you know, anyway, all kinds of things. So then why would the Buddha show this appearance of being, you know, cut by this shards or getting sick or so forth? Yeah, I mean, one is maybe just to, yeah, that way, I don't remember the clear answer. Let me think for a minute. I mean, according to the Madhyamaka view, then the Buddha's not experiencing the result of negative karma. And that totally makes sense, actually, because, I mean, for karma to ripen, it has to be moistened. It's like karma is like a seed, remember? And just like for a seed to ripen, it has to have the conditions of soil and warmth and moisture. Those are the main ones. And then the seed will ripen to produce a sprout. So for the seeds of karma to ripen to produce a result, they have to be activated by the moisture of afflictive emotions, right? Attachment or anger or ignorance and other afflictive emotions. So because, you know, even an arhat, not to mention a Buddha, they're completely free of any afflictive emotions. Then there's no moisture. There's nothing to activate the seeds of karma to ripen, right, into an effect. So yeah, I mean, one explanation for the Buddha, you know, I mean, in the case of the Buddha, though, being attacked by the elephant, like you mentioned, the Buddha didn't suffer. I mean, Buddhists don't suffer at all, but even being attacked by an elephant, it's like an opportunity to show, because he totally just subdued the elephant. I mean, if you remember the story, clearly, it's this drunken, wild elephant, and the Buddha just gave him a mother elephant and totally subdued the elephant. So actually, it's like his own kind of renown increased as a result of that. And there was no suffering result for the Buddha. But the one with the Buddha being cut by the shard of rock, it's more difficult because it does look like, oh, that would hurt, right? But of course, actually, I mean, the Buddha doesn't experience any physical pain, but then why even have that appearance? Yeah, one way would be to say it's due to the karma of the Buddha's disciples. They had the karma to see him, hurt in that way. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. There's probably a better answer than that, but I can't think of it right now. So we'll leave it. I'll think about it. If I think of a better answer, then I'll be back next week. Can try to tell you. Or if you ask someone else too. If you come up with a better answer, you let me know.
Thank you, Ginla.
We should probably conclude now.
So, Legtsok, there are two more people who wants to ask questions. So, one is Tenzin Dhaje and one is Abelardo Brenes. If one of you may just ask your question first.
Sure.
Abelardo or Tenzin.
Yeah, hello. Hello, am I online?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. Hello, Kashila. My question is also regarding the karma with the karma that expands exponentially. Regarding this part, I would like to know what is the logic behind. Like, for example, a basket of apples, you can't just say that, oh, today is 1 apple, tomorrow there's 2, and the next day will be 4, 6, 8, without no reason, right? So what is the reason and what is the logic behind that this karma actually expand exponentially? Thank you.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Good question. Yeah, I haven't seen an actual a logical explanation in any text or heard one. So generally, it's just taught that these are the characteristics of karma. Karma. Well, I mean, this aspect of karma, you'd have to say it's kind of like the subtle workings of karma. Like there's something that, yeah. So I mean, similarly, like, well, I'll come back to it. But there's different kinds of phenomena. Some phenomena are very, very hidden phenomena, which means that they can't be explained by our direct perception. They can't be explained by logic. They're taught, by the Buddha out of his, by having completely purified by his mind and just seeing things as the way they are and then explaining them. That's the only way we can know them, is on the basis of a explanation by an unmistaken kind of being. So this characteristic of karma, I think it's probably, it's like that it's something the Buddha taught, and it's not something we have a sound proof, like a valid proof for it. But that said, I mean, take your example of a basket full of apples. If you take all the seeds from the apples and you plant them in the ground, and you grow trees, and the trees bear, a crop of apples, you're going to have a lot more apples than you had in the basket, exponentially more apples. But in that case, it's like those seeds and the apples have actually produced results and produced something else. So, yeah, one way to think about it would be, once we create karmic seeds, that the successive moments of that, there's a continuum of the seed. So the successive, the later moments of that seed of karma are a result of the earlier moments, and thereby, the results become greater and greater. Just like, successive generations of a certain crop, they can become more and more and more than the previous. If you take like one corn cob or one head of rice and plant all the seeds, then you get a lot more grains of rice than you did. If you plant all those grains of rice, then the next crop is a lot more than that, and so forth. It exponentially increases. So the logic is something like that, I suppose. But again, it's something I haven't seen clearly explained in the text. I haven't heard it clearly explained in teaching the logic for that. So it's something I've thought about a lot. I also have questions about, and yeah, that's kind of the best I've come up with. But it's not something that's the reasoning for is clearly laid out. Okay, last question, Chindy.
Yes, last question is by Abelardo Brenes. Thank you, Legtsok. Sorry, we have overshot time. I know that.
No, for me, it's fine.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, please go ahead.
a very good presentation, Venerable. My question is very much related to some things you touched upon right now about the consequences of karma. The language used, like when you say ripening of seeds, it sounds so like there's some kind of impersonal mechanism or force taking place. Like if you kill, then it's like you will be killed in this life or at some point in some life. But is my understanding correct that the mechanism by which these cause and effect of karma take place is ultimately happening all in the mind? And so, for example, if one kills, one will then engage in certain actions that will make it more likely that one will be killed. Is that a correct interpretation?
Yes, but to say that it's all things happening in the mind is a little not quite right. So so basically, yeah, and yeah, I am describing it like an inanimate kind of force at work, right? But remember, it all begins a process. You know, the process. So think about the process of us engaging in a volitional action. So that starts with the mind, right? We have an intention to do something, right? Whether it's a virtuous action or non-virtuous action. Or then there's neutral actions also, I didn't mention, but some actions are neutral, they're not virtuous or non-virtuous. But so so the whole process of creating a karma, engaging in a karmic action, creating a karmic seed, and then the seed ripening. It starts in the mind, with an intention. We intentionally engage in some action, like say killing. And then we actually, and then there's a completion, you know, which means the creature that we intended to kill, they actually die. That point is complete. And then so from that moment, from the very next moment, there's a karmic seed in the mind. So from that moment of, you know, the action being completed, then it doesn't depend upon what we think or do anymore much. It's like this inanimate process just happens. Right, where there's a karmic seed, it's planted in our mental continuum, our stream of consciousness, or the continuum of the person. It travels from life to life until it meets with a certain set of conditions that cause that seed to ripen. So, like you mentioned, you know, that if we kill another creature, then we'll experience the result of the killing. But as you correctly pointed out, for us to be killed, it requires a whole set of causes and conditions to come together, such that there are the circumstances in which we're killed. Yeah, so those circumstances coming together in part is due to that karma, in part due to other karmas, in part due to our own choices. Right? There's a whole, there's a whole complex set of causes and conditions that come together, and those different parts of those causes and conditions, different parts of those circumstances can arise from different causes. Some our own intentions, and some karma, and so forth. For example, like say in a past life we were really attached to alcohol and we drank a lot, right? But then in this life, imagine we're born in like somewhere in the Muslim world where there's no alcohol, right? Then it's likely, I don't know, maybe that's an exaggeration, but somewhere where their alcohol is just not easily available. Then it could well be that we go a whole life without ever having the opportunity to have a drink of alcohol. And so the karma we have to be really attached to alcohol and drink a lot, it never ripens because we never meet with the circumstances, for that karma to ripen. So where we see that, no? Whereas, another person, they might have the same karma, but from a young age, they're born into a family where, both parents, they drink, and then from a young age, they're exposed to alcohol, and then that karma ripens. No? So for karmic seeds to ripen requires the conditions, a certain set of conditions to come together, right? But then again, well, why do some people meet the conditions and some people don't? Well, that also might be related to some other aspect of karma. It's also related to some other aspect of karma. But something like that. But it's not all in our mind. No, there is kind of it's not just that we're thinking, it causing thoughts to arise. Because remember, there's the environmental effect. What kind of inanimate environment are we born into? You know, like why did the COVID-19 pandemic happen? No, it's not the karma of any one person. It's a collective karma of all the people who exist at this time to experience, you know, this kind of, to have this kind of experience, you know, this kind of disease spreading all over. But then within that, you see different people have very different experience. You know? Some people get sick and die very quickly. Some people get sick and have almost no symptoms. Or some people get COVID, but they're totally asymptomatic. So partly that's due to you know, having different karma. Yeah, I think we'll conclude there.
All right, that's clear. So I think we will go for the end dedication prayer first, and then I have a little announcement for the next class. Should I make it first, Legtsok?
No, let's dedicate first.
Yes.
I'll just very briefly dedicate, and then you can make whatever announcements. So let's think of whatever, bring to mind whatever positive karma we've created by generating, you know, starting the session with a good motivation, a wholesome motivation, and then engaging in the practices of hearing, contemplation, and thinking about this aspect of Buddhist teachings, the teachings on karma, the law of cause and effect. So we've all created some degree of virtuous karma, so we can rejoice in that, think how excellent it is. And then rejoice in the actions of Shakyamuni Buddha, who explained this law of cause and effect 2,600 years ago. And then all the Buddhist masters who have expanded on that, clarified and upheld Buddhist teachings until now, especially His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Our other teachers can rejoice in all of their merit and karma and virtuous karma. So then this collection of merit, we dedicate that through gaining whatever understanding we have, and may all of our actions in the future be only beneficial to ourselves and other sentient beings. And may our actions of body, speech, and mind not cause the slightest harm to any sentient being. And from moment to moment, may we be mindful to check what kind of karma we're creating with each action. So in short, may all sentient beings be free from every form of suffering, especially this COVID-19 pandemic may quickly come to an end, and also climate destruction and corruption, violence, oppression, and all forms of suffering, internal, external, physical, mental, quickly be completely eliminated, and may all beings be well, have every form of well-being and happiness up to full enlightenment. Especially may Tibet House and all the other Dharma centers offering pure Dharma teachings flourish, and especially His Holiness the Dalai Lama may have a long and stable life, and all of His Holiness aspirations be fulfilled in accordance with his intentions. And may we all never be separated from His Holiness from life to life in all our future lives. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Legtsok. We are we on behalf of Narikat Saling and Tibet House are deeply indebted to your teachings today. And we are really amazed by how a complex topic like karma, you actually, you made it easy for us to understand. Whatever limited understanding we have understood at least somewhat about karma. And I think I speak on behalf of all the participants here today. One small announcement is that the next class is on 24th of July at 7:30 p.m. and it is on the 12 links of dependent origination. And the new schedule has been mailed to all of you, and the link will be mailed to, I think it will mail to you all closer to time. Right, Domala? I think yeah. So I think it is, I think we had a good session, and I say good night to all of you, and whosoever it's morning there, have a wonderful day. And thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hi, Kashila. Are you still online?
I am.
Yeah. Kashila, sometimes I couldn't really hear very clearly from your mic. The sound is a bit quite muffled.